Hello there, welcome into this latest edition of the SAU Football Coaches Show. I'm Daniel Gallegos, joined alongside SAU Defensive Coordinator Josh Lawson. And Coach, we're happy to have you here. Normally we have Head Coach Bill Keppel in here, but we decided it was time to get the coordinators some attention here in this Coaches Show, and particularly wanted to focus on the defensive side of the football, because coming into the year, that was kind of, everybody was saying, okay, we know the offense in years past, they've done what they've done, led the conference in total offense the last 2 years, and a lot of it was like, if we can get the defense to make a step and, and win some games, essentially. I think a lot of people thought that could be a big difference this year. It has been through the first 5 games. I can think back to at least 2 games this year to where the defense has essentially won the game, either with great stops late, turnovers late, what have you, or just the entirety of their play throughout the year. So talk about where the team's at right now, 4-1. One of the big reasons has been the defense, because the offense, a little slow going early, they're starting to pick it up, but your defense has been there all year.
Well, I think it really began with the very first game of the year with Southwest Oklahoma. We came out there and had a lot of busts, had a lot of miscommunication early, and went into halftime in the hole. And our guys kept it together. We went into halftime, made some adjustments, talked about communication. The guys, it was really great for me going into halftime of that game, because I was really torn on whether I was going to go in there and just go off on them and try to get them fired up. But as soon as I walked in the locker room, almost to a player, each one of them came to me and started asking questions as soon as I came in. Coach, when I get this, how do I react? Coach, when I'm seeing a lot of this, can I do this? And stuff like that. So I knew they were in the game, and I knew they were focused, and they were wanting to do right. And so I was able to go in the locker room and make adjustments and not just yell and scream and try to get them fired up. And then you move forward, even into the Harding game, where obviously we didn't get the outcome we wanted, but the guys knew that they played at a level that they needed to play at. That's the first time in several years that we played Harding at a good defensive level. Not that we got what we wanted out of it, not that we were perfect. We still have some things we have to do against that triple option. But they knew themselves, without me having to tell them, that they had played at a level they knew they had to play at. And in that Tech week, some of the stops we made right there, that was just sure willpower. I told the offensive coordinator from Tech when that game was over, I said, man, y'all had a great game plan, because literally the very last play of the game, I called the only call that I hadn't called the entire game. I was down to nothing, and our kids just kept battling, kept fighting. And so I think after that game especially, they realized, yeah, we're a little young in some positions, but we're talented enough. If we do what we're supposed to do, we can be special. And, the homecoming game last week, that is one of the hardest offenses, to be honest with you, I've ever had to prepare for. I didn't really call any plays all week last week. The guys had to make their adjustments on their own. I told them, when you see this, you're going to have to make this adjustment, and so on and so forth. And they did it, and they did a good job. And Southern Nazarene threw a lot of stuff at us. It was a lot of misdirection, and I thought the kids came out of it and played well. So I've been happy with that.
Yeah, you talked about a young defense. You're not old in any stretch of the imagination, but you're a year older in terms of experience, because last year there was a lot of freshmen out there. Obviously, everybody has seen the talent, but I think the more experience they've gotten, you can kind of see it all gelling together. So how does that excite you, knowing you have a young defense, each week they're getting more and more experience, and you've got playmakers out there?
It's really exciting. I mean, it's hard as a coach, because we're always recruiting, and it's hard not to talk about years that are coming up. We always have to be ahead, be focused on what we're doing right now, but we always have to focus on what's coming up. And when you sit there and you talk about that, you're only losing 3 seniors. You're losing Nico Thomas, you're losing Trevor Gainwell, you're losing Calvin Lyons, and there's so many players that we have right now that are making plays. I mean, it gets you really, really excited for what we got coming for the rest of the year and the future of our football team. I think it's a testament to what Coach Keppel's done. Coach Keppel has really focused on who we recruit and how we recruit them. He's been big about, I don't want to get kids in here who are just good football players. If they're not interested in getting a degree, if they're not interested in being a good person, we don't want them here. And because he's done that, when you get kids like that start getting closer and closer to a degree, and they become more and more committed, because as a freshman, and this is any school in America, as a freshman, kids are still halfway in, halfway out a lot of times. But once they get into year 2, year 3, and they know they're valuable, and they know that they can help this football team, but also they're seeing themselves do stuff in the classroom and get closer to a degree, they start committing even more, and that's where I think we're getting to now. And halfway into the season even, we're seeing guys step up that we didn't necessarily know were going to be able to even play for us this year, and not only are they playing for us, they're playing at a high level. So that's really exciting.
Just collectively as your defense at this point of the year, obviously still a lot of the season left, but which area, defensive line, your linebackers or your defensive backs, which area has surprised you to this point with their level of play, or maybe just something that you weren't necessarily expecting this year?
I'll point out some individuals specifically. Stacy Lawrence. Stacy came in here as a defensive back, and we were loaded at corner. And so the next spring, you know, we moved him over to receiver, see if he could be a receiver. And Stacy has some speed, but he didn't catch the ball too well. So we moved him back to corner. So he started this fall at corner, and then we had an injury, and we moved him over to nickel. And Stacy's sitting there with 4 interceptions, a lot of tackles right now. I think he has 22, 24 tackles, something like that, playing his butt off. I never saw that coming at the level that he's playing at. Jalen Hill's a guy that came into the season as a guy that we didn't even know whether he'd make the travel roster, and now he's made a lot of plays for us. Obviously, we have guys that we knew that were going to make plays, like Darren Crawford. We know he's one of the best corners in our conference. Nico Thomas and Elgin Moore, we know those two are smart players who know our defense and can make plays. Talked about Stacy. At the other corner position, we've had a lot of injury over there. Marcus Brown got hurt very first game, and then Lorenzo Watkins had to come in for him. Lorenzo made a game-saving interception. And then Lorenzo's been hurt, and Jay-Sean Williams has come in and played lights out. Jay-Sean went from being a safety for us to start the year, and I had to move him over to corner like the first or second week of the season, and he moves over there, and he's playing lights out. I mean, Jay-Sean's a really good corner. Been very proud of him for that. Malik Preston and Corey Jenkins have flat played their butts off. I mean, you don't see it every day, every week in the stat column, but those kids play hard every time. Corey Jenkins has went from someone who was on the verge of, is he going to be a player, is he not going to be a player, to where he's really picked his game up. And then I can't talk about our D-line enough. I mean, when you talk about Kendricks McCann and you talk about Anthony Washington at the level that those two are playing at right now, it's unbelievable. I mean, we don't have starters and backups on our D-line. We just have our 1A and our 1B. I mean, Anthony Washington is he's a beast when he wants to be. The one thing we got to work on with him is he's a very passionate player. So we got to funnel that passion into being a consistent player, into being a productive player, not necessarily just letting himself mentally get out of control. Calvin Lyons, I'm looking for Calvin to make more plays. Right now, I mean, Eric Washington, a true freshman, not Eric Washington, Eric Smallwood, true freshman's come out there and really played really good. And we've asked Eric to play the 3 technique and the nose. He's done a good job. And right now he's a freshman, and you can see sometimes he's a little timid, but he's doing a good job. And then Jaquel Owens, he's been a little hurt the last few weeks, but Jaquel's came in at practice this week with the right mindset. He's not going to let that ankle bother him, and he's playing his butt off at practice right now. I hope to see it on the field this week. At nose, Travis Williams is a freak. I mean, he makes plays that noses aren't supposed to make. I mean, we put him in a position to where he's going to get double teamed, and somehow he gets off of it and makes plays. I love that kid. He plays his butt off. He's smart, very intelligent, trying to get a degree. I love that about him. And then Big J. Big J has come so far from last year. He's come from being a guy who was just a plugger to now he's understanding what our offenses are trying to do to him, and he's reacting to it and helping us a lot. And then on the end, Malachi Porter and Devondrick Lizen's been hurt. But again, he's a guy who's looking like he's going to get back this week, and we're going to try to get some special situations to get him in the game, get him going. We all know what Lizen can do, but Malachi Porter's been very, very solid. Hadn't let things get off the edge on him. And then Jalen Hill, again, talking about Jalen. Jalen's a kid who is very analytical, and he wants to know why and he wants to know how. And if you give him those two things, he does a really good job. And he's played the strong end for us. He's played the weak end for us. Those guys, I can't talk about our D-line enough. I love the way those guys play. I love the way they come to practice. I love everything about them. I love everything about this group. I mean, this group really works hard to try to get to where, like you were talking about earlier, I think we took it personally. I know I did, because our offense was so dominant last year. Our offense put up a lot of points, a lot of yards, and did a lot of great things. And we took it personally, being a young defense last year, to understand, hey, we got to get more mature and we got to get more physical. And I think our guys did that and are on their way to being really special.
You know, right at the halfway point of the year, you're at a point in the schedule to where your defense has obviously taken a step forward this year, elevated their level of play. But some of the more tougher opponents are left on the schedule. Not to try to get too far ahead, but what are you all trying to do to keep that consistency and even try to get a little bit more on the defensive side, knowing the opponents that will be coming up week in and week out?
We as a coaching staff talk about that a lot, is that the main thing is we got to get healthy through this week and going into the Ouachita game. That's a game that's going to be very physical. They run a completely different offense than what, say, Harding does, but they run the ball just as much. Austin Warford, I think is the quarterback's name. Obviously, I hadn't spent any time breaking down Ouachita yet, but I know this, the kids, he plays hard, and their tight end, he blocks. And their offensive line, they always do a great job with that offensive line. They always have big receivers that they can throw the ball out to, and so we know that's going to be a physical game. Their fullbacks are going to block hard, their running backs are going to run hard, the quarterback's going to run hard. Their O-line's going to do a great job and be consistent, and so we know for the next couple of weeks coming up, it's going to be really physical, and we have to get healthy to get ready for that physicalness.
Well, we appreciate it very much for your time. Again, that's SAU football defensive coordinator Josh Lawson. He and the rest of the Mule Riders are going on the road this weekend at Oklahoma Baptist to take on the Bison for their GAC matchup. Be sure to check MuleRiderAthletics.com for all your pre- and post-game coverage. Coach, we appreciate it. Best of luck.
Thank you.